So again, everyone, welcome. My name is Richard Taylor with Ideate Software. I have my trusted colleague, Sash Kazimidijad, helping me with questions. So again, please feel free to type questions into the question panel and I will try to answer them as best, or either myself or Sash will try to answer them as best we can. And so I really appreciate your time today on this webinar to tell you what's new in Ideate Sticky, but also give, for people that may not be familiar with Ideate Sticky, just a kind of an overview of how it works and able to link in different types of documents into your Revit project. So real quickly, you saw this kind of flash earlier. My background is architecture. I have over 20 years of Revit experience. I was fortunate enough to be one of the original employees at Revit Technology back way too many years ago, and then was purchased by Autodesk. And then I worked at Autodesk for about 12 years as one of the product managers for Revit. And then I've been working with Ideate Software for about 5 years, or a little over 5 years. And so you can contact me. I'm always happy to connect with people on LinkedIn or on Twitter or on Facebook. I have sort of a business Facebook account that's different than my personal account. So all of those, I'm happy to connect with you to help with answer questions or just talk about the industry in general. So before we begin, I just wanted to kind of preface this a little bit about Ideate Software. We're known for our outstanding support and reputation, and I think this is always important to talk about, that we do have in-product and online help. And I'm going to talk about this, or sort of point that out, that we have a lot of videos available to assist you in getting up to speed very quickly. We have the Getting Started guides in all of our solutions. And we're updating and supporting Revit 2018 through Revit 2021, so the last 4 releases of Revit. We have versions that go back earlier, but we've stopped development on, let's say, Revit 2017 and earlier. And then we do comprehensive QA testing with large, complex data sets. You're going to see I have some examples of using BIM 360. So we're dealing with just large amounts of data, and very similar to the projects that many of you work on a day-to-day basis. So I mentioned that we have a lot of online resources, and I wanted to point out of just a few things. If you go to our website and you look at our video library, there are 3 videos that under Ideate Sticky that I wanted to highlight. There was the What's New Overall in Ideate Software. That's all of our 5 solutions, which does touch on Ideate Sticky, but then there's a specific one, since we did a lot of enhancements with Ideate Sticky this release. There's a video just on the new features and enhancements of Ideate Sticky that you can review. And then, of course, there's the introduction to Ideate Sticky that we've updated to include some of our the new features that I'm going to be showcasing today. And dun-da-da, I'm so happy that this came out just yesterday. Both Sash and myself were interviewed for BIM Thoughts. If you're familiar with this particular podcast, you can go to that bimthoughts.com. It's episode 2017, and a little interview about us, and we're talking actually primarily about Ideate Sticky. So that's why I thought it was really important today to reference this, because if you want to know a little bit more about some of our sort of processes or thoughts, and even our Ideate Software beta program, this is a really nice podcast to check out. And so this is the latest update, as I said, for versions 2018 through 2021. So if you are currently an Ideate Sticky customer, you'll want to go to your pull-down menu on Ideate Sticky and then do the check for updates and make sure that you do have the latest installed. And we've done some other enhancements, making it easier to install all of our solutions, all 5 of our Revit add-ons. So that's something that you should also review and check out. So what is Ideate Sticky? For those of you that may not know, Ideate Sticky is an add-on solution to Revit that allows you to link Excel, yes, even Word, and PDF documents into Revit. It allows you to maintain that link so that if the documents update, that's automatically updated in the Revit project. And then we've got a couple different ways of being able to include that information as well, which I'll talk about in a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll. All right, we're getting pretty close. We're up to almost, we're now at 87, 89%. So let me go ahead. Once I get to 90, come on. Oh yeah, 91. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. and share that with everyone. So you can see that obviously it sounds like people, I kind of expected that, all of the above. PDF, I'm surprised that no one actually specifically said Word documents per se, but all of the above kind of encapsulates that. So as being able to now not only link in Excel documents, but being able to link in PDF and Word documents is part of our functionality. So let's go ahead and I'm going to hide that and we'll go back to the presentation. So you can see that one of our big enhancements is the support for linking in Word and PDF documents via Ideate Sticky. And this has been a long-standing customer request on the Autodesk Revit Ideas forum. So the fact of not only Excel, but Word and PDF and keeping those up to date. So I thought, I've talked a lot about just sort of the preface here. I think the best thing is just to take a look at this and see how Ideate Sticky works. So what I'm going to do is switch over here to Revit. Today I'm using Revit 2021, but as I said, we have versions that are, that works the exact same way on 2018, 19, 20, and 21, which is really important. I'm going to talk about a couple differences between 2021 and previous versions of Revit, and we're still supporting the linking of PDFs and Word documents. So I have this project here, which is my sort of conference center. All of the Ideate software tools are accessed through the Ideate software ribbon panel. And you can see that I've got all of the 5 solutions that are loaded, and Ideate apps consists of 9 tools, so therefore I have this ribbon panel. So if I go to Ideate Sticky, this dialog will appear, and right away you'll notice that, I've got some previous sticky schedules that I've linked in. And so I wanted to do that just to show you that you can now see a lot more information about those. So for instance, in this particular one, this Philips Hadco, which is one of our sample files, I linked that in from BIM 360. So you see here it's got BIM 360 disk, but down below, we've got more information that we're showing. So that's a new enhancement, being able to see the exact folder, the file, the status, BIM 360 disk, and the fact that this is now on 2 different sheets. This Philips Sticky Hadco is on Z.7 finishes and Z.9 schedules and data. Well, if you look at one of the other ones I have here, it's only on one sheet, which is Z.8 revision schedule for these revision sequences, okay? So that's the first kind of update, is you'll see a lot more information about where these files are coming from. You'll also see a couple tabs here, Excel and Word, which I'll talk about in a moment. So the sort of traditional way that if you've worked with Ideate Sticky that's worked in the past, we're now calling that Excel schedules. So what I'm going to do is create a new one, right? And we'll go over here and say that we want to create, and we'll go out to my samples folder. And I've got a panel schedule here. And this is a non-BIM panel schedule, as you'll actually see here, non-BIM panel schedule, we'll call that. And you can specify what the print area is, or the size, or the basically the area that you're bringing in from Excel, as well as there are different worksheets. In this case, there's one that is black and white, and there's one that is colored. So, in fact, I'm going to bring in the black and white one and say, okay. And so now, when I look at that, basically, let's close this. And you'll see that schedule is listed there, right? And in fact, maybe for my purposes here, I'm going to come down to this revision schedule, or actually schedules and data. I'm going to open up that, that sheet. And you'll notice that this does appear just like a regular schedule. So if you look at the sticky black and white version, right, which I just did, and I click, drag, and drop it, I can drag it onto a sheet like I can with any other schedule. And so we're using the schedule header to display this information. So this is the branch panel of this non-BIM, maybe it's an external panel schedule that I brought in from a consultant. So now let's go back to Sticky. And let's show you a different way that we've added. So I'd like to go to Word, PDF, and Excel, and here we've added the support for images. So I'm going to say create, and we're going to go over here to my same sample. So my training presentations here, what's new, samples, and we're going to come down to the panel schedule that I just did. Panel, and say open. And notice that it also gives me the same worksheets, although it gives me a kind of little different format. Instead of a pull down, I can actually see them right here. There's the black and white version. I'll do the same thing. I'll tick that because here I can actually have both of them that I'm going to bring in. But for right now, I'm just going to bring in the black and white version, select OK, and then go ahead and after that's done, we'll close that. And so what we've done there is this is an image. So it is an image as opposed to a schedule, but you'll notice that the two are very similar. And one of the things with Ideate Sticky is that since we were bringing it in as a schedule, there were slight tweaks that we had to do in order to fit the Revit schedule sort of paradigm, right? So it was not always a 100% sort of visual fidelity between the columns, widths, and the white space. And you'll actually notice here that there's a slight difference in the sizing. So with the images, that's one thing now we're really at almost 100% visual fidelity of what it looks like in Excel and what it looks like now in Revit. So you have the choice now to bring it in as a schedule header or to bring it in as an image. And I'll talk about the sort of the differences and the pluses and minuses of each of those in a moment. But the key of Ideate Sticky is being able to go to my samples, right? To go to the panel schedule, I'm going to open up that Excel file, right? And so there's the black and white version. And so here we're going to say branch panel for, let's say, my conference center. I was going to say North America, but conference center. All right, so I made that change just with the text, right? And so I go ahead and save that. Come back over here. And it doesn't immediately update until I either close the project, reopen the project, or I update manually. But if I come now to Sticky, you'll notice a couple different things here. In the Excel schedules, right, you'll notice all the status. Everything's current, BIM 360 disk, except for this one, the Sticky black and white. It's out of date. The timestamp is out of date. Over here, you'll notice that also the status is out of date. So both of them are referencing the same Excel file, and they're both no longer up to date. So a couple different things is I can update from, right, or I can do this auto update. The auto update, if I just tick this, you're going to see it's going to go out and get the latest. So there's branch panel for Conference Center. The same way over here with Word, PDF, and Excel, I'm going to auto update, and it's going to go out and again get the latest and update that linked image. Now, under the images itself, let's go and fit this. And let's go back to Sticky. And I just wanted to show you a couple other examples of, that was Excel, right? But let's say create again. We're now going to do some specifications, right? We have some Word document specifications here. And I'm going to open that up. And in this particular case, I can choose when I'm doing images, I can choose the DPI, the dots per inch, right? And the default is 300. I can do all pages, or I can specify either with commas, or I can do, like in this case, I'm going to say 1-3 and then say OK. When I do that, it takes, there was a 7-page document, but it's now building the 3 pages that I want, page 1, page 2, page 3, as Ideate Stickies, right? And so let's say close that. And now I have those along the top, and I can grab those and bring those down to this location and say zoom to fit. And then maybe I want to move this over here because I actually also want to go over to Sticky, and I'll show you another example with a PDF file. So I'll do a create, and I've got event detail here that I'll open up. And what's nice is it gives me a nice little preview of it. In this case, there's only 1 page, so I'm just going to select OK and close. And there's that event detail. So I'll move that over here. So now I've got this schedules and data sheet that has a combination of images from Word, images from PDF. There's an Excel schedule here with images and graphics, because with our Excel our Excel schedules, we're supporting the graphic images as well. And then over here, like I said, the two different versions of the panel schedule, one as an image and one as a schedule itself. And when I go over here to Sticky, you will notice that the nice little icons here that show you, like, this came from PDF, this is in Excel, and these are Word documents. Over here in Excel, you'll notice all of them obviously are just the Excel icon, because that's what we're supporting for schedules. Okay. Now, let's go back to my presentation. I want to fill you in on a couple details here. So another really nice enhancement that people have been asking for is the ability to either do a shift select or a control select to select multiple stickies. So when you select multiple stickies, you can basically update from, it's now enabled, and so you could repath to let's say, if you wanted to select all of the 7 documents as an example, the 7 pages, you could update and say, I want to repath that to a different document that has those 7 pages. I might want to change the region or change the DPI. So now all of this is available as a shift select. And then you saw when I was bringing in the panel schedule that there was an option, or we actually have one worksheet called black and white. This was another feature that was requested by customers, was that when you go to the page setup, you'll see that there's a little tick mark for black and white. In the past, even if you tick that, we were still bringing the colors in to Ideate Sticky or through Revit. Now we'll respect that. And so you can, if you have an Excel file that has a bunch of colors and you just want the black and white, if you just tick that black and white, it will do the grayscale instead. And then again, the differences between images and the Excel file or the schedules. So in the past, as I said, we were supporting schedules for Excel files, but now we give you the option of doing either. And the advantage is that in the past, because we had to format things like a Revit schedule, we were limited to what was able to be created in the Revit schedule. So for instance, any kind of charts that you see there on the right-hand side were not available to be brought in to Revit. And things like pie charts and those types of things were just ignored. Only this sort of schedule information was shown. So now if you need that, you can bring those charts and those images in via using the image tab as opposed to the schedule tab. And so this is what I talked about earlier. This is a great matrix. There's always sort of, I think, pluses and minuses depending upon how you want to use this data coming into Revit. So what we've done is we've created the difference for Excel, the sticky schedules, right, or the sticky images, and what is actually supported. And one thing I think that's really important to remember is, and I'm going to come back to this chart in a second, but yeah, as I mentioned, I'm using Revit 2021 here. In Revit 2021, it does support the ability to update or to link an image. And what Autodesk has done is when you go to the Manage tab, there used to be Manage Images. Well, now basically you just say Manage Links. And PDF and images are part of the Links tab or dialog. That's only in 2021. But the key is we're supporting the linking and updating of the PDF in previous versions. So that's 2018, 19, 20 as well. That's going to update. So I think that's a nice factor to know, that even though you may not be using Revit 2021, we've made sure that the functionality works with those previous versions. So that's what I mean here when I come back over here and it says here, you're able to, what versions you're able to support and being able to update. And so you can see that another advantage for sticky images is the difference in Revit. When you're creating a schedule in Revit, a schedule can only be placed on a sheet. You can't place a schedule on a drafting view. You can't place it on a plan view. It has to be on a sheet. That's the requirement. So therefore, we have to work within that environment. So sticky schedules can only be placed on sheets. Sticky images, you see there, we have a much more. We can place those on sheets, plans, drafting views, legends, detail views, again, because they are images. And by default, we've set that when they come in, they're background images. The setting is for background, but you can change that if you'd like. And again, as we see, I mentioned about the sort of visual fidelity, that there are slight tweaks that we have to do to sort of fit it into the format of the sticky schedules, but those tweaks are no longer necessary with sticky images. So in most cases, it's going to be 100% fidelity between the Excel, PDF, and Word document and the image within Revit. And then a disadvantage of images is the fact that you can't search the text. In a sticky schedule, like I said, it's an actual schedule and it's actual text, so you can search that. And then the size is always an issue too. But we've done a lot of work, and we've realized that the size is not that much of a factor, especially and even some of the things that Autodesk is doing with linking in PDFs. That there may be a slight increase in the size if you're doing a lot of these images, but it's not overly dramatic. And like I said, we've tested a lot on large files. We tested this with our beta customers, and they all gave us feedback that it was very workable and did not drastically inflate the project size. Some other things that we've done that I wanted to highlight here is that this is a little bit complicated, but I want to switch back over here to Revit just to try to explain this. When we go to sticky, you'll notice that I had a status here on the schedules that said this came from BIM 360 disk, right? There are situations, because we're using the desktop connector, and so the desktop connector is synced to BIM 360. And in that particular case, there are times where if I update the information, I see it on my desktop connector, it's been updated, but that update doesn't always reflect for my entire organization on the desktop connector. And this is something we've highlighted to Autodesk as something that they need to sort of fix, because we were noticing that people would update, let's say, an Excel schedule, and it was updated on the one person's machine, but it wasn't getting replicated on the other people that had that desktop connector. And it was because the desktop connector thought that nothing was changed, even though there was some data that had been changed, like the file name didn't change, but the data within it did. So what we've tried to do is encapsulate that and just give you a better reporting, so that if it's up to date, it will say BIM 360 disk, but if it's not up to date on everyone's computer via the desktop connector, we're going to give you a BIM 360 error, which means that you might have to then sort of manually update that or make sure that it's the latest version is on everyone's computer on their desktop connector via BIM 360. And like I said, hopefully with our filing of that information to Autodesk, that will get updated. So speaking of updates, how do we improve? The pull-down menu I mentioned, you can request a feature, you can report a bug, you can also check for your updates to make sure you have the latest and greatest. So all that information, we definitely want to hear from you, and we want to know about how you're using our tools and what you'd like to see in future versions of our software. So I mentioned this earlier, but it's so important that we have a lot of videos, blogs, online help. Sash and I are constantly writing blogs to try to sort of encapsulate particular workflows. One that we have documented quite a bit is people always ask about Ideate Sticky. How do you break up a sticky into multiple schedules? And so that is defined within the Excel file as a named region, and we have a whole series of blog articles and videos allowing you to do that. And then also being able to do workflows where you can use these tools together. So you might want to export out a lot of data via Ideate BIM link and then use a pivot table to manipulate that data, massage that data, and then be able to link that back in to Revit and show that on your project. So a lot of people are using Ideate BIMlink and Ideate Sticky together. And we have a whole sample. A good example of that is our revisions, being able to export revisions and revision sequences out to Excel, being able to sort of manipulate and summarize that data, and then link that back in via Ideate Sticky to show that within your project. So if you have some curiosity about revisions, that's another good workflow. So you can download a trial of Ideate Sticky, a full function 14-day trial on our website. That will allow you to access a lot of these these features that I've talked about today. So I know we're about exactly at the top of the hour. I want to see, Sash, I haven't really been monitoring the questions too much. Are there some questions you'd like me to sort of highlight?
Yeah, there's some good questions here, and maybe we could just add a few more remarks with Sticky as well. And so one of the questions that came up was, where are the images located in the project browser? And the comment I made on that one was, images normally in Revit don't show up in the project browser. So if you actually want to see the images themselves, they're still under the whole image manager, right?
Exactly.
Also, and I was just going to mention Ideate Explorer. So for those of you that have Ideate Explorer, one of the things that we've done is both from an active view and also from a whole project, we have broken them up. And you can see right here, Richard's highlighting the Ideate Sticky images. So we can index and know what's a sticky image versus a regular image versus also what is a schedule, right?
Right.
So if you have Ideate Explorer, it's easy for us to help you find those elements. Again, the power of using Sticky versus just using regular Revit images is we do all the conversion for you. We have the location of the path. We do the auto update for you. If you were trying to do this manually, the old school way in Revit, you would have to go into the source document, export it as an image, link it, or import it depending on what version of Revit you're in. This is all taken care of right here. And again, the way we program the software, we can encapsulate a lot of the information from the Word file. So Richard showed you the example of the Word files that have the watermark in them. That's pretty cool, right? So we encapsulate all that information and make that work for you. So hopefully that answers that question. In terms of quality difference, that was another question that came up. There is no quality difference between using, Sticky to make images versus, let's say, using the image manager. So that's something to kind of keep in mind.
Yeah, and again, a lot may depend on the DPI. We found that the 300 is a pretty good indication for being able to print that out and have it be exactly the same. And you'll notice here, I'm zooming in, the one below is the schedule, right? And the one above is the image. So it's pretty clear. If I really zoom in, then you can start to get it pixelated, but it really depends on the DPI that you have.
Yep, exactly. And then we did get another good question, and this one's come up a few times. There was a question of, do you guys work with Microsoft OneDrive for source locations? And again, if you have documents, let's say like we were playing around with Google Drive, if it's on your computer and you could do a direct link from it, no problem. If you, however, let's say you need to do the authentication where you log into it, we don't currently do that. And we've stuck with BIM 360 because BIM 360 is the platform that, especially with what's going on with COVID, a lot of people have moved over to BIM 360, and that's where they're putting all of their documentation, right? And so, as Richard pointed out, we totally support BIM 360. Richard pointed out, what you have to be careful with BIM 360 just in general, and that has to do with files that are stale. And you can see that in the in BIM 360 in one of the headers up there. You can actually get a status of a document, but that's the preferred method with what most customers are using. We do have some folks supporting stuff on OneDrive and Google Drive and some other drives out there, but our focus has been on BIM 360.
Right, and for instance, you'll notice I have a Dropbox here. The files could be on Dropbox as well. That's just a shared drive, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so we can link directly from Dropbox, but if you needed to do authentication log in from there, we don't currently support that. There's a whole nother set of framework that needs to be built around that in order to authenticate, I guess.
Correct.
And then we just had another question come in. Many times images need to be scaled. Does Sticky allow the user to scale the images? Actually, Richard, if you can, real quickly, I know we're a little over time, can you go to a floor plan that may have a scale set and just show what happens when you do, actually go maybe directly to the plan instead of through a viewport, if that's okay, just so people can see that. So the question is, the Sticky, can you scale images? Does it handle all that? And the answer is yes. So he's going to go to a plan here that's set to 3/32 of an inch. And why don't you go ahead and bring in maybe something as an image through Sticky, because I just want people to see what happens here. And again, this went through a lot of discussion.
You have a good suggestion, Sash, for like
actually bring in the specification because that's at 8.5 by 11. So it's totally fine if you want to bring that in. We don't necessarily put floor plans in our sample documents, but if you did export out a PDF, of a floor plan at a scale, we just wanted to kind of show you what happens here. So, all right, so let's see. There it is. I can kind of see it right there. Yep, there it is. So now if you go to the properties with it selected, you can already tell it's been scaled up. So we do the math for you. You can see the horizontal vertical scales at 128 instead of 1. So we do actually do handle the scaling. And if you do updates to it, it'll maintain that scaling. And you can change the scale from here if you need to.
Right.
So yeah, we handle all that. So we look at the viewport scale and make the changes if need be.
Yeah, there I totally goofed it up, right?
Yep, exactly. And then
that's a good question.
It's a great question. And then another one just came in. Can you add an image into a title block? Sure. I mean, I suppose you could do that. But again, if you're doing, title block images, I prefer not to for a lot of reasons. But if you need to, you can certainly do that through a title block if need be.
Yeah, good questions.
Yeah. I know there, and Richard, I know you pointed people to the website. Be sure to check out the website for a lot of workflows on Sticky. We have some pretty neat tips and tricks there, like how to take Excel schedules and break the headers up into multiple stickies. We have some pretty cool tips and tricks in prior webinars as well. So
yeah, I had done that over here for, let me see, sorry about that. Let me go to my page here. I've got my revision schedules, right? So this was using our revision samples, but I wanted to have the header, right, of the revisions be shown each time. So here's like sheet A1 through to 410, picks up at 411, but we have the header basically that's in Excel that I wanted to show each time. And so that can be done very easily.
Cool. Yeah, that's a great example right there, which with our DIR template that uses Bimlink and Excel and Sticky to generate a revision list for revisions on a per sheet basis and the repeat rows at top. We support all that as well. Great job, Richard.
All right, well, we're a few minutes after. I will have one last thing I would like to ask you. Is if you could please fill out the short survey at the end of the webinar. It really helps us focus these presentations to what you'd like to see, gives us good feedback. So I'd really appreciate if you could take, there's just like I think 3 or 4 questions, very, very short. We'd very much appreciate that. So again, thank you so much. Thank you, Sash, for being able to answer the questions so well.
You bet. Great job today. Thanks, everybody, for your attendance. Really appreciate it.